Before the story pulls you deep, pause for 1 second. If you love gripping Nigerian stories that feel real, raw, and unforgettable, subscribe now, because this is the kind of story that stays with you long after it ends. Amara was born into noise, sweat, and survival. Ajigunal never slept, and neither did hunger. Every morning before sunrise, her mother, Mama Nkechi, balanced a steaming aluminum pot of pap on her head, her wrapper tied tight as armor against the day. "Wake up, Amara," she would say softly but firmly. "If we don't sell early, we won't eat well." Amara would drag herself from the thin foam mattress, wash her face with cold water from a blue plastic bucket, and follow her mother to the roadside. She hated the smell of charcoal smoke, the shouts of conductors, the dust that clung to her slippers. Yet she watched everything with sharp eyes. From that roadside, she saw Lagos in layers, the suffering and the shining. Sometimes, sleek cars slowed near the traffic light. Tinted windows, quiet engines, polished rims. Amara would stare until the cars disappeared. "One day," she muttered, "I will sit inside that kind of car. I won't beg anybody." Mama Nkechi once heard her and sighed. "My daughter, contentment is better than gold." Amara scoffed. "Mama, contentment didn't pay my school fees last term." Her mother said nothing after that. Silence had become her way of loving. In secondary school, Amara learned early that beauty was currency. Teachers noticed her. Boys whispered her name. Women watched her with half admiration, half warning. She learned to walk with her head high, even when her sandals were worn. At night, she listened to radio shows about success stories, about girls who escaped poverty and built new lives in Lagos Island. She didn't dream of love. Love, she believed, was a luxury for people who already had money. What she wanted was escape. After she finished school, opportunities came wrapped in small disappointments. Shop assistant jobs that paid nothing. Men who smiled too much and promised too little. One evening, as rain drummed on their leaking roof, Amara announced, "Mama, I'm going to Lagos Island. I can't die here." Her mother looked at her for a long time. "This city eats people," she said quietly. "Especially girls who think beauty is enough." Amara smiled. "I'll be careful." They both knew care was not always enough. Lagos Island was another planet. The air smelled different. Perfume, power, impatience. Amara stayed with a friend in a cramped room, but her eyes were already elsewhere. She worked briefly as a salesgirl in a boutique, watching wealthy women try on dresses without checking prices. She studied them, their confidence, their careless laughter. "No more broke men," she told her reflection one night, adjusting her borrowed wig. "Never again." Her life changed at a fashion show in Victoria Island. The hall glowed with lights and soft music. Amara was there helping backstage when she noticed him. Chief Obinna didn't shout or show off. He sat calmly, his presence heavy with authority. His wristwatch alone looked like it could buy her mother's entire street. When their eyes met, he didn't stare. He simply smiled, slow and measured. Later, he approached her. "You look like someone who knows where she's going," he said. His voice was deep, confident. Amara felt her heart steady itself. "I do," she replied. They talked briefly that night. Nothing dramatic. No promises. But the next day his assistant called. Then dinner followed. Then weekends in places she had only seen online. Within weeks, Amara moved into his Banana Island mansion. The first night there, she touched the walls as if they might disappear. The bed swallowed her whole. She laughed alone in the bathroom, surrounded by mirrors. "This is it," she whispered. "I've crossed over." Gold became normal. Designers became casual. Silence became expensive. She sent money home and bought her mother a new stall. Her friends gasped when they saw her. "Amara, is it love?" one asked. Amara smiled, sipping wine. "Love can wait. Right now, I want comfort." Chief Obinna watched her quietly. He never raised his voice, never rushed her. One evening, as they sat on the balcony overlooking the water, he said, "There's only one thing I hate, lies." Amara laughed lightly. I'm not a child, she said. I know how to behave. He nodded, eyes unreadable. From ajagunal dust to Banana Island diamonds. Amara believed she had finally won. She didn't know that Lagos never gives without collecting. And comfort, when chosen over love, always sends an invoice. The good life did not arrive suddenly. It unfolded gently, like silk being drawn from a box. Amara woke each morning to silence so complete it felt unreal. No shouting neighbors. No generators fighting for attention. Just air conditioning humming softly, curtains moving like they were breathing. At first, she felt like an imposter walking through the Banana Island mansion, afraid something would expose her. But luxury has a way of rewriting confidence. Within weeks, she walked like she belonged. Chief Obinna spared nothing. A white Prado arrived one afternoon with a ribbon tied around it. For convenience, he said simply. Another day, a slim box appeared on the bed, gold jewelry that felt warm against her skin. He never announced gifts. They just appeared like rewards she didn't have to ask for. Amara learned quickly that gratitude here was quiet. Too much excitement looked cheap. Soon, she was flying to Dubai, Paris, places she once only saw on billboards. She took pictures but rarely posted them. Obinna didn't like noise. People talk too much, he told her once over breakfast. Privacy is the real wealth. She nodded, though inside she wanted the world to know she had arrived. The boutique in Lekki Phase 1 was the crown jewel. You said you wanted your own business, Obinna said, handing her the keys. Amara nearly cried. She hugged him tightly. You've changed my life, she whispered. He only replied, don't forget who you were before this. She smiled, thinking he was being sentimental. But the good life came with rules, even if they were few. Obinna was not controlling, but he was observant. He listened more than he spoke. He watched how she reacted when things went wrong, how she treated staff, how she answered simple questions. And always that rule hovered quietly between them. Never lie to me. Amara told herself she could handle that. She wasn't lying, she reasoned. She was just enjoying life. Then she met Toby. Toby was everything Obinna was not. Loud, playful, reckless. An influencer with perfect teeth and endless energy. They met at the boutique when he came to pick clothes for a shoot. You're finer than these outfits, he joked. Amara laughed despite herself. He made her feel young in a way luxury couldn't. Soon, casual conversations turned into late-night drives. He drove the Prado like it was his own, music blasting, Lagos lights rushing past them. With Toby, there were no rules, no measured words, no heavy silence, just laughter, desire, and the thrill of being wanted for herself, not as an accessory. Amara convinced herself it meant nothing. I can have both, she told her reflection. One for comfort, one for excitement. Lagos, however, does not respect secrets. It only delays their exposure. One night in Victoria Island, after a party filled with flashing cameras and expensive perfume, Amara leaned into Toby outside the club. The music thumped inside as he kissed her, careless and public. She didn't notice the driver sitting quietly across the street. Obinna's driver. The man who had opened her door 100 times without ever meeting her eyes. The next morning, Amara woke up smiling. Obinna was unusually gentle, kissing her forehead before leaving. I'll be busy today, he said. Enjoy yourself. Something in his tone felt different, but she ignored it. Wealth had made her confident. Too confident. Days passed. Nothing happened. No confrontation. No anger. Amara relaxed. Maybe Lagos wasn't watching after all. Maybe she really could have everything. She didn't know that Obinna had already started collecting the price of the good life, and he always collected in full. Obinna announced the trip casually, like it was an afterthought. They were having breakfast when he said, I want to show you something special, a place I built for peace. Amara's eyes lit up instantly. New places always meant new luxury. Where? She asked, already imagining Instagram angles she would never post. Ape, he replied. The smile on his face was calm, unreadable. The drive took longer than she expected. The city thinned out, replaced by long stretches of road and trees that seemed to swallow sound. Amara chatted excitedly at first, but Obinna responded with short answers. Eventually, silence filled the car. When they arrived, she gasped. The mansion stood alone, massive and elegant, surrounded by tall trees like guards. Marble floors gleamed under crystal chandeliers. The scent of imported perfume hung in the air. "This is beautiful," she whispered. "Everything you need is here," Obinna said. "Food, comfort, space." She laughed. "So what's the catch?" He looked at her for a moment too long. "No catch, just rest." The first day felt like a private retreat. Amara explored every room, marveling at the luxury. But by evening, small things began to feel strange. Her phone had no signal. The Wi-Fi didn't connect. "Network here is terrible," she complained. Obinna nodded. "That's the point. Silence clears the mind." The next morning, he was gone. A note on the table read, "Stay here for a few days. Think about what you really want." First, she laughed. "This man and his drama," she muttered. But by the third day, laughter faded. The gates were locked. Guards delivered food without speaking. No matter how much she shouted, no one answered. Panic crept in slowly, then all at once. Days stretched endlessly. She cried, screamed, begged. She replayed every choice she had made. For the first time in years, there was no noise to distract her from herself. Luxury without freedom felt like a cage wrapped in silk. When Obinna finally returned, she ran to him, tears streaking her bare face. He looked at her quietly, as if observing a lesson completed. "You wanted luxury, not love," he said softly. "Now you understand the cost." Amara's knees hit the marble floor before she even realized she was falling. The sound echoed through the vast living room, sharp and final. Her body shook as sobs tore out of her chest, ugly and uncontrollable. She clutched Obinna's trousers like a drowning person grabbing the edge of a boat. "Please," she cried. "Please, I'm sorry. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know." Obinna did not pull away, but he did not comfort her either. He stood still, looking down at her as though she were a stranger he had once known well. The house felt colder now, even with the air conditioning running. The silence pressed against her ears. "Stand up," he said calmly. Amara obeyed, wiping her face with trembling hands. She looked at herself reflected faintly in the polished wall. Eyes swollen, lips cracked, hair dull and tangled. This was not the woman who once stepped into Banana Island wearing confidence like perfume. "I didn't bring you here to punish you," Obinna began, walking slowly toward the large window. "I brought you here to show you something." She sniffed. "I've learned. I promise I won't ever." He raised a hand, stopping her words mid-air. "I told you one thing," he said, his voice firm but not loud. "Never lie to me." He turned to face her. "You laughed. You thought money makes people stupid." Amara opened her mouth, then closed it. Every excuse died before it reached her tongue. "I have been poor," Obinna continued. "Poor enough to know hunger. Poor enough to know that when you finally escape it, you fear going back more than death itself." He paused. "That fear makes people greedy. It makes them careless." She nodded desperately. "That's me. I was afraid. I didn't want to lose this life." "And that is why you lost it," he replied. He reached into his pocket and brought out an envelope, placing it gently on the table. "Inside is 50,000 naira, he said. "That amount fed your family for weeks once." Her breath hitched. "You can't do this," she whispered. "I already have," he said. "This house, the cars, the boutique. None of them belong to you anymore. You mistook privilege for ownership." Amara fell again, this time flat on the floor, crying openly. "Please forgive me. I love you," she said, though even she heard the desperation in her voice. Obinna watched her for a long moment. "No," he said finally. "You loved what I provided. Love doesn't need secrecy." He turned and walked toward the door. At the threshold, he stopped. "Go back to where you came from," Amara. Learn the difference between gold and grace. Then he left. The gates opened. The guards stepped aside. The lesson was complete. The first thing Amara felt when she stepped out of the compound was shame. It clung to her tighter than poverty ever had. The sun was hot, unforgiving, and the road outside the mansion looked ordinary. Too ordinary for everything she had just lost. She stood there with a small bag, an envelope containing 50,000 Nigerian nairas, and memories that felt heavier than luggage. No car followed her. No voice called her back. For the first time in a long while, she was truly alone. The journey back to Lagos was quiet. She sat by the window of a bus, staring at her reflection in the glass. Without makeup and designer clothes, she looked younger, almost fragile. Other passengers chatted, laughed, complained about fuel prices. Life moved on without her drama. That realization hurt more than Obinna's words. When she got back to Ajagunal, the streets felt smaller than she remembered. The noise returned, the shouting, the music, the smell of frying oil. Mama Nkechi looked up from her pap stand and froze. For a second, neither of them spoke. Then her mother dropped the ladle and pulled Amara into a tight embrace. "You're alive," she whispered, relief flooding her voice. That night, Amara cried the kind of tears that empty you out. She told her mother everything. Mama Nkechi listened without interruption. When Amara finished, she expected anger, disappointment, lectures. Instead, her mother said quietly, "Life teaches all of us. Some lessons are expensive." Amara didn't sleep much after that. Each morning, she woke early and joined her mother at the roadside. At first, embarrassment burned her skin when people recognized her. Whispers followed her. "Isn't that the girl from Banana Island?" She kept her head down and worked. Pride had cost her too much already. With part of the money Obinna gave her, she bought thrift clothes, carefully selected, neatly arranged. She started selling at Yaba Market. The work was hard. Customers bargained aggressively. Some days she made almost nothing. But every naira felt honest. Slowly, she learned patience. She learned humility. She learned that survival earned through effort tasted different, cleaner, stronger. Months passed. Amara's hands grew rough again, but her mind grew clear. She stopped scanning faces for rich men. She stopped measuring her worth by attention. Instead, she saved small amounts, planned carefully, and rebuilt herself brick by brick. One afternoon, she attended a small charity event. Not as a guest, but as a volunteer helping arrange clothes for orphan girls. When she looked up, her heart skipped. Obinna stood across the room, dressed simply, donating quietly. Their eyes met. The room seemed to pause. He gave a small nod, not pride, not regret, just acknowledgement. Amara nodded back. There was no bitterness left in her chest, only understanding. As she walked home later, she whispered to herself, "Some lessons don't destroy you. They wash the greed off your soul." And for the first time, she believed it.